Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening. It's Thursday, March 4th. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya C, and we begin tonight with what could be a new approach in the vaccination process, a plan to devote a certain number of vaccines to the hardest hit communities. KPBS reporter Joe Hong explains how it affects San Diegans, especially in South County.
These are the vials. They contain 5 doses each.
The governor's office will now be reserving 40% of all vaccinations for those residents living in the most disadvantaged areas in the state. Newsom emphasized the disparities in the communities that have had the highest COVID-19 case rates during the pandemic.
Just consider low-income households earning less than $40,000 a year have been impacted by 2 times those in households whose incomes are north of $120,000. They've been impacted by multiples.
Despite these disparities, the distribution of the vaccine has favored wealthier communities.
At the same time, insult to injury, households earning over $120,000 have twice the access to vaccines than those communities that have been disproportionately impacted. That is what we have to reconcile.
With the new policy, state officials said they will ensure that more vaccines arriving in disadvantaged communities will end up in the arms of the local residents who need them the most. The 40% of all vaccines will be distributed to about 400 underserved zip codes statewide. Most are in Los Angeles County and the Central Valley, but several zip codes in the South Bay will also benefit. Nora Vargas is the county board supervisor representing the region.
I am ecstatic about it. This is what we've been fighting for from day one, right? I mean, I think the board, advocating for health equity, this is what health equity is all about.
South San Diego County is home to more essential workers who are more likely to catch and spread the virus. The zip codes in this part of the county have also had the highest infection rates throughout the pandemic.
The Latino community has been most impacted disproportionately by COVID-19, especially in the South Bay. And so if we're going to reach herd immunity, we have to make sure that we take these bolder steps, as the governor said.
So far, 1.6 million doses have been distributed to Californians living in underserved communities. The governor's office announced on Thursday that once 2 million doses have been distributed, the threshold for exiting the most restrictive purple tier will be relaxed from 7 daily cases per 100,000 residents to 10 daily cases. Joe Hong, KPBS News.
Another step toward getting kids back in classrooms. Today, the California legislature approved $2 billion for school districts if they offer in-person instruction by the end of the month. Another $4.6 billion will also go to districts to help students catch up. San Diego Unified is hoping to get some of that money. It's planning to bring students at all grade levels back on April 12th. The Del Mar vaccination superstation is about to close temporarily. The Scripps site will shut down Saturday, March 6th due to the low number of COVID-19 vaccine doses that were delivered to Scripps Health this week. It will, however, reopen the next day. That's Sunday the 7th. Patients who had Saturday appointments, which were all for second doses of the Pfizer vaccine, are being rescheduled for Sunday automatically through the My Turn online appointment system. And we're following all the latest developments at kpbs.org. And if you're not sure where to go for a shot, just click on the Vaccines tab on our homepage. There you'll find a searchable map with clinic locations and links to make an appointment if you're eligible. Kids could be returning to youth sports sooner than expected. Today, attorneys representing student athletes say the state has agreed to relax restrictions that would allow kids to play outside and indoors. KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman says there will be a strict safety protocols that include regular testing.
This is a good day. Torrey Pines High School head football coach Ron Gladnick got emotional over news of a settlement, which attorneys say will allow youth sports indoors and outside to resume play statewide.
We worked every day to try to get to this place in time.
Gladnick, along with the grassroots Let Them Play coalition made up of parents, kids, and coaches, have been negotiating with the governor's office for weeks.
It really just shows that these coaches care a lot more about us than just the winning football games. These coaches all really care about us as kids.
Nick Gardenera is a football player at Scripps Ranch High School who was a plaintiff in a lawsuit against the state. It recently resulted in a judge temporarily allowing all youth sports to resume in San Diego County, and the state did relax some restrictions for outdoor sports, but the group kept pushing.
I think of a kid like my son, which is obviously my why in a movement like this, who's got a 4.0. He's got some offers, but he really wanted to show what he's been doing for many, many years.
Marlon Gardenera is Nick's dad and the head football coach at Scripps Ranch High School.
Last Friday, when my football team took the field for the first time officially, I said it felt like spring had come early. Today, for all high school athletes in California, Christmas has come early.
Attorneys representing two athletes say they have a court date tomorrow in San Diego. That's when they plan to present the settlement that, like the pros, will require safety protocols and regular testing for student athletes.
Indoor sports will be allowed with testing within 48 hours of competition, and then periodic testing as well during the weeks.
Attorneys say those testing requirements will go away once the virus has low transmission rates. While a settlement appears to have been reached here, the fight continues in court for some local restaurants and gyms. A judge has again denied a request by attorneys representing businesses including Cowboy Star Restaurant and Bear Republic to reopen indoors at a limited capacity. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
Local officials and union leaders are among some 134 tourism and labor groups statewide calling on the governor to immediately issue new guidelines. They want clarification on the conditions in which to allow business meetings, events, and conventions to resume. They say it's just not the economic losses last year or this year, but what's ahead for 2022 and beyond. It's estimated for every month California delays opening these types of events, the state is losing $4.1 billion in economic activity, not to mention job loss. New unemployment numbers are out. The Labor Department is reporting 1.2 million new jobless claims last week. That number is made up of 745,000 first-time unemployment claims adjusted on a seasonal basis. It also includes 437,000 workers who applied for pandemic benefits. Self-employed and gig workers are eligible for that program. Today, the Senate got the ball rolling on the $1.9 billion COVID relief bill. Vice President Kamala Harris broke the tie to start the debate, but it will be a long night. That's because the entire 628-page bill is now being read on the Senate floor. And we do mean the entire thing.
As the American Rescue Act of 2021, Section 2, Table of Contents. The table of contents for this act is as follows. Section 1, short title. Section 2, table of contents. Title 1, Committee on Agriculture and Nutrition.
The debate continues amid an intelligence bulletin warning that militia extremists could try to take control of the U.S. Capitol. Emily Schmidt has more from Washington. The CHP has just identified those injured in a deadly crash in Imperial County. 4 people from Mexico and 2 from Guatemala are at hospitals in San Diego with major injuries. The border fence, where authorities say their SUV drove through Tuesday, is now closed up again. 25 people were crammed in the SUV when it crashed into a tractor trailer, killing 13 people. They range in age from 15 to 53. A memorial now stands at the crash site where people are stopping to pay their respects, including Congressman Juan Vargas.
It's a horrible tragedy. Obviously, we're all saddened tremendously by the loss of life, the incredible loss of life.
You know, you hear about people making this type of trip all the time, and nobody really pays that much attention to them. And then you hear something like this, and, you know, it makes you think. So, you know, I figure the least I could do is come out here and pay my respects.
The area where the crash happened became a major route for illegal border crossings in the late 1990s after heightened enforcement in San Diego pushed migrants to more remote areas. San Diego County has not been spared from the nationwide spike in racist attacks against members of Asian American and Pacific Islander communities during the pandemic. KPBS investigative reporter Claire Trageser details these incidents.
The alleged attack was cruel and brazen, a man punching an elderly Filipino woman on a San Diego trolley. The San Diego County District Attorney's Office says there wasn't enough evidence to file hate crime charges in that case, but it has filed charges in 3 other cases of hate crimes against Asian Americans. County prosecutors have also documented a number of other racist incidents. In addition, the San Francisco-based advocacy organization Stop AAPI Hate collected 29 reports of racist incidents in San Diego County against Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders from March through December 2020.
That's what's disturbing, is we were not seeing that kind of hate crime directed towards our Asian community until COVID in 2020.
District Attorney Summer Stephan set up a hotline last May where people could call or make online reports of hate crimes and racist incidents. She says they received 110 reports to the hotline, and 10 were reports of incidents directed toward people of Asian descent.
It's been actually horrific.
Russell Jung is a professor in San Francisco State University's Asian American Studies Department who co-founded the Stop AAPI Hate Group.
The attacks are pretty traumatizing because it's unexpected that adults would bully others, that they would use such racial slurs and epithets.
His group has been doing what they call Chinatown strolls in San Francisco and Oakland, where people go visit businesses which are meant to create a sense of community safety. San Diego City Councilman Chris Kay did something similar in the Convoy area at the start of the pandemic.
What we wanted to do was to showcase the community and to show support in that it was okay and you should continue to visit your favorite restaurants and businesses.
Stephan says hate crimes must be pursued vigorously because they tear the fabric of communities in all corners of the county.
It's so close to home. It affects a whole community. You know, my husband, my kids are Asian American, and you know, every time we hear about an incident, it's as if it happened to our own family.
Claire Trageser, KPBS News.
And now we want to get back to the latest on the COVID relief bill. Here's Emily Schmidt.
If you want to know what's in the 600-page, $1.9 trillion COVID relief bill, you could hear every word of it.
I feel bad for the clerks that are going to have to read it, but it's just important.
Republican Wisconsin Senator Ron Johnson says reading, which could take about 10 hours, would drag out a vote he considers too broad. Utah Senator Mitt Romney says he agrees with Johnson's tactic.
The president's plan is massively excessive.
Democrats have a different read on the delay.
We all know this will merely delay the inevitable.
The Senate bill is different than what the House approved, and one big change hinges on income. In both versions, individuals making less than $75,000 a year and couples earning less than $150,000 could bank on $1,400 per person. But the Senate cap is lower than the House. Those who make more than $80,000 a year or couples earning twice that will not see any relief. With a 50-50 split in the Senate, Democrats don't have room to lose a vote.
We'll come back to the House. We'll review it and send it to the president.
Yet as she said that, the House was in recess in response to federal law enforcement on high alert. An intelligence bulletin issued earlier warned militia extremists talked of targeting the Capitol and Democratic lawmakers on or around March 4th.
This is going to be the new reality for a little bit.
According to 2 defense officials, Capitol Police requested a 2-month extension of National Guard troop support at the Capitol to firm up security for lawmakers. In Washington, Emily Schmidt, KPBS News.
Some faith leaders have raised moral concerns about the development of Johnson & Johnson's COVID-19 vaccine, and that's because, unlike the others, it was produced in part through the use of cells derived from an aborted fetus. In Claremont today, about 100 priests and deacons with the San Diego Catholic Diocese received their first dose of the Pfizer vaccine. Alvarado Hospital provided shots for the clergy from different parts of the county. Bishop Robert McElroy says the vaccine's becoming more available. It's a chance to heal from the pandemic.
So I urge people of faith, as an act of faith, as a service to God and neighbor, to get vaccinated, because you're not only protecting yourself, equally importantly, you're protecting those whom you love and our country as a whole.
The bishop issued a statement indicating that the use of any of the leading COVID-19 vaccines would be, quote, entirely morally legitimate. California saw hospitalizations skyrocket around the holidays, and when staffing couldn't keep up, the state let hospitals put more patients on a nurse's workload than the law usually allows. In the first of a two-part series, KPBS health reporter Taryn Mento tells us how nurses felt pushed to the brink by the move and questioned whether it was even necessary.
It's been a long year for nurse George Santiago.
If you have responded to multiple code blues in one shift, that really drains you.
Code blue means a patient is near death. Santiago's job is to rush toward those calls as a rapid response nurse at Palomar Medical Center, Escondido. And he carries the extra burden of often being a patient's last contact.
I'm picturing myself, if this was my family member and there's nothing I can do, you know, the desperation, the hopelessness, that is what kind of kills you.
The weight grew heavy during the late 2020 surge. Palomar received state permission to stray from a landmark law that limits the amount of patients under a nurse's care. Staff could now be asked to take on 1 to 2 additional patients.
Here, why don't you carry this pile of bricks while you're trying to tread water? You know, so that's the equivalent.
Palomar is one of more than 200 California facilities that received temporary staffing waivers during the pandemic. Governor Gavin Newsom expedited the waiver process when COVID-19 patients skyrocketed late last year, but staffing did not.
Just stretching resources and, again, empathy and respect to those human beings, these frontline healthcare workers, these nurses in particular that are just doing heroic work every single day, asking yet again for a little bit more during these very challenging next few weeks.
The state health department declined an interview, but said in an email waivers should be a last resort. The waiver application says hospitals should exhaust alternatives before seeking one. But the state said in its email that facilities actually don't need to. And the KPBS iNewsSource analysis of publicly posted waivers found dozens did not document they tried all listed alternatives before seeking the waiver.
You know, the process is easy. The process can be approved in as little as 8 hours. And then there you go.
Stephanie Roberson leads government relations for the California Nurses Association. She says under the expedited process, a staffing waiver could be granted in less than a day. The union has protested against the waivers, including at Palomar. Roberson says they've successfully contested 3 of the at least 43 waivers that have been rescinded in the state.
And the ones that have been rescinded are because we're saying on the ground, we're looking at your form, and number one, you haven't checked any of the remedies.
The application form asks hospitals what other options they've tried. That includes transferring patients to other beds, rescheduling elective procedures, and possibly setting up clinics for non-emergency cases. The KPBS iNewsSource review found about half of approved hospitals did not report they tried all options, including some in San Diego.
Parameters aren't strictly adhered to. It's just, quite honestly, to be quite frank, it's just a formality.
Most local facilities that received waivers declined or ignored requests for interviews. But Santiago says the waiver didn't need to happen at Palomar. The facility laid off more than 300 staffers when patient tallies dropped last April.
Most of which, of course, we can't get back now because they're not going to hang around. They're going to look for other sources of income.
Applications ask if hospitals experienced layoffs within the last 2 months. The Palomar layoffs were several months before Santiago says the Escondido facility applied. However, the details of its application are not posted on the state's website. But Santiago says the Escondido facility did not cancel elective procedures before getting its waiver.
Which was even more difficult for the recovery room nurses because they have their load of people that they have to recover from surgery, and then they have to handle, COVID patients too.
Santiago says the union filed a grievance because Palomar did not communicate with them before getting a waiver. Palomar refused requests for an interview, but a spokesman previously said claims of unsafe working conditions were inaccurate and called them appalling and irresponsible. All expedited waivers were due to expire last month, but at least 84 hospitals received extensions until the state provided additional staffing resources. Coming up tomorrow, a local hospital shares why they needed a waiver.
We had over 500 patients within our hospitals with COVID. That's 5 times more than what we had earlier in the year.
That's in part 2. Taryn Mento, KPBS News.
This story was co-reported by iNewsSource investigative reporter Chil Castellano. iNewsSource is an independently funded nonprofit partner of KPBS. A number of gorillas at the San Diego Zoo have been given doses of an experimental COVID-19 vaccine following infections among apes at a sister park. One of those was the world's first orangutan to undergo open-heart surgery back in 1994. She was among 4 orangutans and 4 bonobos who received shots. The 2-dose vaccine was developed by a veterinary pharmaceutical company founded by Pfizer, and it had only been used on cats and dogs prior to the gorillas. San Diego researchers say the same storm systems that carry rain to Southern California also help create ice on Antarctica. KPBS environment reporter Eric Anderson has the details.
A NASA satellite is helping reveal how storms help build the ice pack on Antarctica. Researchers found ice was increasing because storms repeatedly dumped snow on the continent.
We use these satellites called altimeters, which are these highly precise instruments that can measure tiny changes in the surface elevation of the ice sheet.
Sushil Adesumili says the ice sheet thickened most on the western edge of the continent, and one reason was frequent storms known as atmospheric rivers. That was a surprise for co-author Rutgers University's Meredith Fish.
They are mainly a subtropical and tropical origin storm. Thinking about how far that has to travel to then still have such profound impacts, that was the part for me that was, and with such high frequency, that was surprising.
Atmospheric river storms are expected to increase as the climate warms, and that could boost ice levels even more. But Adesumili says it is unclear whether that balances the amount of ice the continent is shedding because of climate change.
We need to find out if those things would balance out. And the current consensus is that they might not, and the melt might still outweigh gains from snowfall.
That means sea levels could continue rising, increasing the chances of flooding in San Diego. The findings are published in the current edition of the journal Geophysical Research Letters. Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
We are managing to hold on to a dry weekend, so enjoy the beautiful weather. What I will say is we have this onshore flow, which of course means some moisture, some clouds for us, but really pretty quiet times right into the middle of next week when we start to see our next chance for rain. Tonight, no problems as we hit the 30s or 40s in most locations, 39 in Escondido. Pretty quiet conditions, 44 in Borrego Springs. And notice, could be a few clouds out there, but I think we're looking fairly clear through the overnight. Tomorrow, though, there should be some more increases. There should be some increasing clouds, mostly to our north here. We'll find some coastal clouds, but the trend will be to get a little bit more moisture as we head towards the weekend. So we're going to call it a mostly sunny day. Again, could find a few clouds out there offshore. 67 for Oceanside, 68 in San Diego. Campo coming in at 69. Mount Laguna in the mid-50s. Again, fairly quiet weather as we move through time. Futurecast starts off with maybe just, again, a few of those coastal clouds. Not a lot of moisture, but you can see at the edge of the screen going into Friday afternoon, there is a bit more moisture offshore. So eventually we'll be tapping into to a few extra clouds as we get in towards the weekend. But really, it's just the trend of bringing in some cooler air. And Saturday still looks fairly quiet for us. It's actually the middle of next week when we start to see a little bit of stormy activity work its way on in, and we could be talking a few rain showers out there. So for the coast, next couple of days, again, we'll notice those clouds kind of on the increase heading through Saturday and Sunday. Temperatures in the 60s, fairly comfortable, maybe a bit on the cool side. Showers possible by Tuesday, and that'll be true in our inland locations as well. Getting into Saturday, though, and Sunday, more clouds likely there. Mountains, we'll see some clouds as well. It's a gradual increase as we get cooler and windy on Monday, awaiting that next storm system. And then for the deserts, we will have maybe just a few showers possible into next Tuesday as well. For KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Melissa Constanzer.
And here's another look at our top story. 40% of all COVID-19 vaccinations will now be reserved for people living in the most disadvantaged areas of California. These vaccines will be distributed to about 400 zip codes, including several in San Diego's South Bay. The governor says once 2 million doses have been distributed in these communities, the threshold for exiting the most restrictive purple tier will be relaxed to 10 daily cases per 100,000 people. They did it. The Aztec men's basketball team captured its second straight Mountain West title, and they beat UNLV on the road 71-62 to grab the crown again. It was SDSU's 11th straight win, too. This now gives the Aztecs the top seed in the Mountain West tournament. They will also likely move up from 19th in the national rankings. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Have a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley. And by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.